Hello, and welcome to the Business Behind Small Business, the show that reminds you that just because you own a business doesn't mean you're a business owner. In each episode, we will discuss a common issue small businesses face and offer tips and advice from the perspectives of two business owners, one that built to sell and one that built to inherit. We are your hosts, Sevana Stone and Chloe Lee. There's a lot of business behind small business, so let's get to it. We are now 18 episodes deep into our podcast and are getting more comfortable with our topics, discussing our personal mistakes and the lessons we've learned. We are super pumped to have what I think is a heck of a lot more listeners and downloads than I would expect to have. So thank you to all for listening to our advice and for coming back. In saying that, we thought it would be a great opportunity to share our most impactful lessons, our inspirations, and dig a little deeper into what makes us tick. We may do this from time to time, and I think it's important to because we'll have new listeners. And as time goes on, it's important to remind ourselves and our listeners that our beginning is not that different from yours. In saying that, let's get on with the show. Before we begin, we should note our disclaimer. We are not licensed financial experts, nor do we give financial advice. Anything we share with you here on our podcast, whether it be a personal experience or submission, or advice or tips that have worked for us, or that we believe would work for you, should not be viewed as either financial, business, or tax advice. We ask for you to do your research, have open and honest conversations with your company's own support providers, and make decisions based upon that. Throughout this broadcast, we will share our knowledge and give suggestions and hope you will receive them as part of your overall research to better your own company. So, Chloe, I think when we first started the podcast, we discussed our inspiration, but we really didn't dig into who we are as individuals. Well, maybe a bit, but not enough. I would like our listeners to understand better what your inspiration was to starting this business, why you knew it would be the one you would sell, and why you chose this industry.
I feel like that's a very loaded question.
True.
It was somewhat straightforward. My background has always been in accounting, as you know. I went to school for accounting. I worked in a Big Four and did a few years going down the career path in accounting. But honestly, I was one of those kids in school who just didn't really know what I want to do, in so much as I did know what I didn't want to do. So I knew that I didn't want to be a doctor, I didn't want to be a lawyer, and I didn't want to be an engineer, which is the big three if you're Asian.
True.
Now, I did flirt the idea of going into IT for like a semester, where I kind of double major between that and accounting, only because in high school I took some programming classes and I was really good at it and I really liked it. But then I took some of the classes at my university and it confirmed the thinking that I had back in high school, which, you know, is not flawed by any means, is I didn't want to spend my life talking to a computer. Not that we do any of that now. Anyways, it made sense to a 17-year-old at that time.
We're kind of doing that right now.
Nobody ever told me that no matter what career you chose, most likely you'll be sitting in front of a computer for hours a day. And that's what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to sit in front of a computer for hours a day, which is why I dropped out of programming and out of IT. Anyways, life is funny, I guess. So I didn't know I wanted to do business because I came from a small business family and I grew up kind of immersed in our family business, which basically meant that whether you liked it or not, you were providing free labor to your parents. But my parents were always more of like small business owners rather than entrepreneurs. And so I myself was always like pretty in awe when I saw people on the big screen because, you know, movies, real life, of course.
Oh, totally. I mean, everything. Absolutely.
Of how cool it was to be an entrepreneur, to be a CEO and be making this business deals left and right. It just looked really cool. And I was like, that was my image in my mind. What was it like to start and own and run a business, right? Again, I was a very smart kid, really in touch with reality, apparently.
They're smart in their sense.
There's some of that. It took me a while. I grew into my sense much later in life, apparently. So regardless, at the end of the day, I didn't have much direction of which way I wanted to go. And my father just suggested, he's like, why don't you major in accounting? Because no matter what business you do, you'll need to know accounting. So I was like, okay, why not? And so that's how I ended up with accounting. And then I started the business about 6 or 7 years after college, because I've realized about that time that going down an accounting path meant that it would be really hard for me to get to be a CEO, because accounting was such a little part. Like, it's an important part, but it's a small part of what business is all about. And so I knew that I was kind of going deep into the path. I mean, 6 or 7 years in, you're going down the manager path. Eventually, in accounting track, everybody tries to make partners somewhere in a company. And that was probably 15 years into it. So I was kind of getting into the middle of this career. And then I realized that if I don't get out soon, I would just keep going down this path, and I just would regret it in the long run. So I was 27 at the time. Wasn't married, though committed to the same guy. And didn't have any kids. And then financially, I had a decent amount of savings saved up and little to no debt. So I figured if I didn't jump and try this now, I don't think I ever will. So I ended up going in to start my own business, and I chose accounting because that was literally the only skill set I had. So I didn't have much choice. Although I do tell people that I trust when I had the business back then was, I got into this accounting business to get out of accounting. My whole goal was to get out of being an accountant. And so that's what I did. My illogic actually made a lot of logical sense to me.
No, I get it. You went from being in the fire to being in the pan, and the pan eventually leaves the fire. So either way, you got out of accounting by going into accounting. So makes sense. I don't know if what I just said made any sense, but it's making sense in my head.
I think a lot of people who go into business, who are small business owners, they do it so they have the freedom of time and they can create a career for themselves, which is great. And so when I went into it saying that I wanted to go into accounting to get out of accounting.
Yeah, but you went into it so that you could create your own schedule and be your own person as in the accounting world. And you went into something that you were already familiar with. So, right. It was a marriage.
Yes. So it was a deliberate decision on my part for that, because it's the only thing I knew, but I got into it because I felt it was the quickest way for me to get started and to eventually sell it.
Which is what most people do. I think, I would like to think that, these aren't real numbers, so don't quote me, but I would like to think that 90 to 95% maybe of people get into whatever kind of business they have, because that's what they were before. And now it's in their business like that. I think that sentence can be used for, I got out of, being an electrician by starting my own electrician company. I got out of being, I got out of being a plumber by starting my own plumbing business. I think that sentence can be used for so many different people, but most people start their first business, and sometimes their last business is their first business, by going into something that they already know how to do. It's very difficult to go into something the first time when you know nothing about it.
I agree. And I actually admire people who do that, who jump into an industry that they know nothing about. I am very glad that I chose an industry I was familiar with, because I knew nothing else about business, really. Working in your family business does not make you learn business by osmosis, apparently. So everything else I had to learn on my own. But it was nice to know that at least the service you're selling isn't something you have to pick up and learn. And I think you're right in that sense. That's a pretty typical starting story for a lot of small business owners, especially if you read something like E-Myth. They can say that a lot of technicians kind of jump out and become their own small business owners for that same reason. So turning the tables, when did you know that you picked the right business to be in? Because your history is you kind of done quite a bit of everything, right? So when
yeah.
you know that
People, when I tell people all of the things that I've done, they're like, "What? Say what now? Like for real? For real?" Like, yeah.
she started when she was 5.
Yeah. I've been in a lot of different industries. I am definitely one of those people who have been in so many different industries that it sounds like a tall tale, but it's true. I started off thinking that I was in fire and rescue, and I thought for sure that I was going to become a firefighter. I really wanted to be a firefighter, but at that time, in those years, it was very unusual for a woman to be a firefighter. Even more unusual for a young woman going from high school to training. So I was constantly steered towards, very strongly pushed towards becoming an EMT, and I had no interest in that. So after a lot of an unfortunate environment, of which I do hope does not exist anymore, I finally gave up because I just couldn't imagine having to fight a battle every time I went to work. So I gave up on becoming a firefighter, even though I truly loved it. And I know for a fact that if it were today's world, I'd like to think that I would have just straight up become a firefighter. It was definitely something I truly enjoyed. After that, when I went to school, I was also a writer. All through high school, I wrote a lot. I wrote 2 books. I wrote a few books on poetry. I published a lot of stuff. I won quite a few awards, and I also published something in the Washington Post when the USSR fell, which was really cool. It was like not a contest. I guess it was a submission thing for high schoolers, and the best written observation of the fall was the one that they were going to publish, and they published mine. In any case, so it helped that one of the countries that were part of the Republic was Armenia, and me being Armenian, so it kind of felt like I had an insider feel on it. But in any case, so I thought, great, I'm going to go into journalism, and that's what I'm going to do. And then I also, sang, but just in case you didn't know, I also sang, and had an opportunity to get into the music industry. And I, of course, took that up, and I was like, yeah, I'm totally doing that. Screw this journalism stuff. I'm going to be a star. And then realized that the music industry is not at all what people assume it to be. And there was a lot of parts of me I wasn't willing to give up. So I left the music industry just in time to have my first child. And I thought, well, I'm going to go back to my first love, which is writing. And the internet was a new thing. And what is now the Associated Press was at that time called something else. I can't remember what it was called, but I did write some really awesome articles that were published by the Associated Press, and made some money off of that. It's not a whole lot of money, but if I wrote enough, I could definitely make a decent living off of it. Started doing some side stuff here and there. I did some event promoting for the city of Detroit. But I never really felt like I was doing what I wanted to do. I was really sad about the music industry, but I knew I had made the right choice. It really eats your soul. So I knew for sure that was not where I wanted to be, but I did not know for sure where I did want to be.
And writing didn't feel like a long-term fit?
No, it didn't, because as it became more popular, blogging became a new thing. And as it became more popular to write splashy articles, I was being directed pretty firmly as to how to write things. So that's also where my views on media kind of started, where I was being told to write things in a specific narrative that maybe did not align with my perspective. And that started to become, again, it came down to control, and I didn't necessarily like that. At the time, I still lived in Michigan. I hadn't moved yet, and I had my second child. And I was doing more things online because I just couldn't afford daycare. Daycare is expensive, and daycare for two children was going to eat my paycheck. So I started doing just a little bit here, a little bit there, online, virtual assistants started to become a thing. I did, telemarketing was a new thing. So I did telemarketing. That was so much fun. I did event promoter bookings and stuff like that. Just a lot of online stuff. In about 2006, I started getting into bookkeeping. I had done like the ticker tape bookkeeping before, like handwritten bookkeeping before, but I started to really get into QuickBooks. And then fast forward to 2010, I had 3 different online jobs, and I was not satisfied with any of them. I didn't feel like they fed me spiritually, mentally, physically. It was just a job. They were jobs. I went back to school, and I retook classes on public speaking, intercommunication. I felt it was important for me to learn how to speak in a business environment, of which I had never really been in. I had been in a sales environment for many, many years, but not in a corporate environment. And so I think that was one of the best decisions I made, was to go take an intercommunication class. And then in 2011, January 1st, that was it. I started the company. I haven't looked back. And I did it because I knew bookkeeping. I knew admin work. I knew how to write in both a logical and journalistic way, in a marketing manner. And I tell you, the reason I started the business is because when I moved to this area, I noticed how expensive rent is. Leases, rents, land, it is super expensive. And I had never met so many people who worked from home. In Michigan, no one worked from home except for me. So I was like, that's interesting. And then 2, because it was right after the Great Recession, a lot of people, I heard from lots of people, either from their spouses or from their own mouths, saying the only way I got to keep my job is if I fired my team. But now I'm stuck doing everything, and I'm working overtime to do all the administrative work. And I was like, that's interesting. So rent is really expensive around here. People do a lot of flex time around here. They do a lot of teleworking around here. Who's doing their back office stuff? Who's doing it?
So
no one's
found
doing it.
Like an opportunity uniquely here too. Now uniquely everywhere. So I guess not that.
Oh, yeah. But unique beforehand. Unique to here. But right. Beforehand, and I was like, well, all that back office stuff, I know how to do most of all that back office stuff. And the rest of it, I can teach myself. I can learn. So I get a feeling that this is going to be a thing. And so I got my business license just so that I could have it in my back pocket, but not really convinced that I was going to be able to start a business. I went to a networking thing with a friend of mine who had just started her own business. And when people asked me what I did, I told them what I did. And they were like, oh my gosh, let me get your card. And I was like, oh, my cards. I just gave out my last card. Actually, I had no cards. Oh, I just gave out my last card. Why don't you give me your card? And that's how it was born. I was like, oh, wow, there's a real true market for this. I had a feeling that there was. That's a long sentence behind your long answer for your one question. But yeah, that's kind of how I fell into it.
It sounds like we both kind of fell into it. It wasn't clear. It wasn't like we woke up from a dream and knew exactly this is it. This is what we're going to do. It seems like we kind of took a lot of side paths and a lot of strolling around, looking around before we decided that, okay, this is it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when I worked in jewelry stores, or I worked in if I didn't work in the office of a body shop, I worked in a jewelry store, and that was all due to, family businesses. None of it felt like this is really it. Like, this is going to be my life. I really don't like this. And even if it wasn't going to be in jewelry, I knew it didn't want to be in sales.
Right. Okay.
But I just didn't know what exactly it was. But the thing, I think the core of, I was really unhappy in 2010. I was really, really, really unhappy with who I was working with. I had some really terrible, I had one terrible, terrible boss. And I didn't like how I was being treated. And yet I felt like I couldn't get out of it. It was a back-to-back situation, one bad boss to another bad boss. And I felt like the universe was kind of placing these bad bosses in my line, to be like, push me out of working for other people.
Signs. Yeah.
And, but the thing is that at the core of me, I had to ask myself, what do I truly enjoy doing? What did I truly enjoy? What brought me joy when I was a kid? And what brought me joy as a kid was being needed. Doing something for someone, connecting a friend to another friend, helping somebody realize something, like it's assistance in some way, shape, or form. I knew that whatever business I started had to have that at its core. And then parallel to that, I knew that because I had learned from my own family observations of my own family members, that somehow they always managed to find a niche and they fed the niche. I knew I had to find a niche and feed that niche. What it was going to be, I don't know. I don't know. But I knew it was going to be those two things.
It did sound like you at least knew what it wasn't going to be.
I knew what it wasn't going to be.
It sounds like a process of elimination you've gone through, at least life have given you to show you like, nope, don't do this. Nope, don't do that. Nope, definitely you don't want to do that.
No, yeah.
Until you found what you felt like, kind of like you said, gave you the most joy in life.
Absolutely. And I would say that if this didn't bring me joy, and if I had not been that conscious, I guess, of joy, I wouldn't still be enjoying doing what I'm doing right now. So in saying that, what would you say was the biggest lesson you learned before you started your own business?
If you were talking about like right before starting a business and in a business context, I would say the one thing I learned is stop talking about your ideas to other people. So because starting, if you have an idea of starting a business, it is a big undertaking and it's a big idea. And it is something that you're emotionally tied to at that point. And it's daring. And so because of that, when you talk about it, which is the natural desire, is to talk to other people, your friends, your family, about this idea you have that you're so excited about, people will kill it.
Yep.
They will kill it with their own fears and the experiences they've had, and they'll project it onto your idea, and they will kill it while it's the most vulnerable and it's in fertile state.
I like that you said kill it, because when you first said don't tell people your ideas, in my head, I was like, yeah, because people steal it. That just goes to show you what kind of world I come from. I'm over here like, people steal your ideas. Don't be telling anybody what you do. And you're, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah, people got to know either they're going to steal it or they're going to kill it. Either way, it's going to die.
And it's hard because, what you do is when you have this idea, and sometimes when the idea feels like it's bigger than yourself, you look for outside confirmation, which is what drives the desire to talk to other people about this. But unless somebody has been in your shoes or are where you want to be, which is probably only about 1% of the population, and probably not among the people unless you come from a very unique family in that sense, people will, out of kindness with their hearts, even if they do care for you and they do love you, will point out all the flaws and all the holes in your idea and directly or indirectly kill it in your mind before you can even start on it. I could not tell you the number of job offers I received when I was saying that, I'm going to go out on my own. And they're like, are you sure? Like, you're a good accountant. Like, you should, we can always find you a place, yada, yada, yada. I mean, even my own parents And so that's the biggest thing I learned is, don't feel like you have to tell the world about your idea unless you are ready for the fact that you are going to have naysayers and people who are going to try to kill it.
Yep. No, you're right. You're right. And for me, the biggest lesson that I learned was from the people that I feel like sometimes the universe puts people in front of you to kind of be a mirror for you. And right before I started my business, I did work for a few people that I paid a lot of attention to and how they treated their employees and contractors or whatever, people that work for them. And I knew for sure I did not want to be that kind of boss. So I learned a whole heck of a lot from the kind of bosses they were. And it helped me to become the kind of boss I am. That's absolutely right before I was like, you did what now? Let me write that down. I'm not going to do that. Don't forget it. Bookmark it. So who would you say influenced your desire to own a business? Was there someone who influenced you?
Yes and no. So this is kind of a funny reason because when I think back as to, really what kind of put it in my mind that owning a business is a good idea, whether or not it is the reality that it is two things. One, certainly my family, right? Growing up in a small business environment, you just get used to that's how life is. And so when you see your parents being small business owners, and even when your brother is a small business owner, it becomes something that's very familiar to you. So it was always a viable option in my mind. And then the second thing was watching Shark Tank.
Really?
So in college, we had to take this class. It was like the worst class ever. It was the most useless business class ever. But the one thing we did during that class was we had to watch Shark Tank. And Shark Tank was just coming out then. It was literally in the first season or maybe two. And we had to watch Shark Tank. And then, oh no, was it Shark Tank? Oh no, it wasn't even Shark Tank. The Apprentice. Let me go back.
Oh, okay.
The Apprentice, I would say Shark Tank's a lot earlier, and I was like, The Apprentice is older. So The Apprentice came out. That's when it first came out. Oh. And our teacher made us watch The Apprentice and then form groups to discuss how we would have tackled the challenge and how we would have done things differently. Mm-hmm. And I think watching The Apprentice just kind of gave me, kind of inspired me with the idea of looking at problems differently and being able to problem solve it. And for some reason, that just was a lot of interest for me. It didn't matter what the problem was, but I just really liked the idea that you have this huge canvas when you have a problem and you just have to rely on all your resources to be able to pull in and be able to solve a problem. And the more unique resources you have, the more unique solution you have. It was just really cool for me. And I think that was probably the first time I felt like I was actually good at anything.
I remember that first season so well. It was huge. And I watched The Apprentice too. It's funny. I watched it. I never missed an episode. I loved that show without knowing why I loved that show. I was so far away from ever owning a business at that time, but it was fascinating because it was, I guess I must have somehow subconsciously absorbed some of that information because it was a really great show.
The premise of it was the layout and what they were aiming to do and giving you that insight into just different problems and how people thought and how they went about the problems. The whole show was cheesy as hell.
Oh, no, for sure. But one of the takeaways I remember from that first season was what was his name? Bill? I think his name was Bill, the guy who ended up winning it.
Yeah, the first guy, yes.
Yeah, I remember they were in a hot, intense situation, and he said, look, we are a team. And we're not, something along the lines of we're a team, but we're not a team because we're going to work together to get this right. But if anything goes wrong, I'm the one that falls. Because he was the head of the leader of the whatever. And it was really interesting the way he went about it. And I was like, oh, he's so right about that. It doesn't matter if the team fails, you're the failure, not the team. So,
and that's so true as a business owner, is it not?
Yeah.
I mean, you rely on your team, and I think that's the risk and that's the excitement that small business owners can stomach, and that's why they do so well, because especially when you have employees. I mean, you can't always control what your employees doing 24/7.
Oh yeah.
So there's always the possibility that they'll do something wrong, but it really does fall back on you at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of doing things wrong, what could you say? What could you say is one big mistake you learned from that you could share with our listeners? Something you wish someone would have told you.
So somebody did tell me this.
Well, that's not fair.
But it happened anyways. So I think that's part of it too, right? Like sometimes you have to go through life experiences. And this was an experience I went in fully eyes wide open and knowing and preparing myself for the experience of. So I wouldn't say it was a mistake. I still don't see it as a mistake, but it is in a sense of, would I ever do it again? The answer would be no. So my example here would be after the sale of the business, to agree to stay on and fulfill a role within the business that acquired yours. Now, mind you, the role
is not uncommon.
It's not uncommon. It's definitely a path, right? So that's what I meant, that somebody did tell me this ahead of time. So somebody told me, and kind of one of my mentors kind of helped lay out all the different options of what happens after a sale. And so because of that, it allowed me to think clearly through. And when this acquisition came up and that was discussed as part of the deal, like I said, I went into it eyes wide open and knowing kind of the pitfalls. But now going through it as an experience, I learned quite a bit about myself and about business in general. So I would confidently say that the next business I start and sell again, I never again would I ever work for the acquiring company afterwards. And that's something you just need to learn, and you can work into the deal, and you can, drive it another way. Now, of course, it has impacts on the deal for this and depends on your business. But I went into it only because I was eager to see what other businesses were like. And I felt like what I created was creation out of my head. And other people must have done it better than me, because that's how I always feel. Other people has done it better than me. So I must work better, work harder. And I think I took that as in, I want to get an insight and, learn from other people. And so I did learn, but I didn't learn the lessons that I was aiming after. But I did learn, but that also kind of went into why I chose this as an example of something that I would never do again. Like I said, it's not a mistake. I don't see it as a mistake, but I would never repeat the same action again.
Yeah. So I feel like it's the same for me in the sense that it's not necessarily a mistake, but would I do it again? Nope. I would have liked to have, maybe you already know this, but I would have liked to have had somebody give me a heads up on what networking is really like.
Oh, so you didn't have to spend so much time and effort in it, figuring it out.
I really spent.
It's like a black hole of time and effort when you don't know how to do it right.
It was an absolute black hole. I spent so many years. I went down a path I thought was going to help me grow my business. Instead, it almost killed my business. And I realized after that the kind of effort I was putting into networking really should be put into the internals of my company. And since I stopped, now don't get me wrong, networking is vital when you first start out. But
of course,
it would have been nice for somebody to have told me, don't just go to any helter-skelter networking event that you could possibly think of, or these networking chapters or these groups. And every time you get invited, you don't have to say yes. It would have been nice if I had some more direction as to which ones are more lucrative, which ones are more partner focused or partnership or relationship focused. And if somebody could have given me a heads up on what networking, what the purpose of networking was, that would have been great too, because then I could have sensed those people that didn't recognize that a mile away and not have wasted so much time on them. So that right there would have been fantastic if I had a little bit more because I wasted a lot of time. And all I can say is, after I started my company, I had my third child. And thank God the kid doesn't remember all the time I didn't spend with him.
Right, because you were off to networking events.
I networked all day, every day, at night. I did all of the things. And it was not as productive or as fruitful as it did not match the level of effort I put into it. So
networking comes really in handy if this is your first time you've ever done business, because quite honestly, nobody knows who the heck you are. Yeah. So you need to get out there. You need to build your network. Whereas if it's your second or third business, you've been around like for a little bit of while, you probably built up a network over time already that you can always go back to. But I feel like for a lot of business owners for the first time, they also rely on networking, thinking that that's their single source of attracting income. Mm-hmm. That somebody will refer you business and stuff like that. And honestly, if anybody actually measures how much business you get directly from networking events, it's probably little to none. Yeah. You're probably going to get a handful of people. Again, we can't not networking too much because it's how you and I met. Right. But you probably will get a handful of people that does kind of become your referral source. But you have to understand how many hundreds of people, how many hundreds of hours that you are spending to find those handfuls of people. Yeah. Especially if you don't have the direction of how to do it properly and effectively.
Yep. Which is something that we're going to talk about more about later on. So before we move on, any final words of advice?
Final words of advice. I would say, one, get a coach. And we maybe we can even have another episode about what kind of coach you can get, but definitely get somebody that can help you, hold you accountable, and keep you just honest with yourself. Because sometimes it's really hard for you as the business owner to see what you're doing in your business. And if you're somebody, especially if you're in a legacy business where you're going to be doing that for years, and let's say you're starting young or you're starting without too much working experience, it's really hard for you to read the label from inside the jar sometimes. And a coach can really help you think clearly through that. Yep. The other item close to a coach is if you are to get a mentor, which is what somebody talks about all the time. And I resisted for years getting a mentor. And honestly, I'm happy I did, because it's not just about getting any mentor that's willing to give you advice. You really want to get a mentor who is already doing what you want to do. Yes. That is ahead of you, that is in the next level with you. Those are effective mentors. And if you can find one and offer, reciprocal value of some sort, in the sense that, if they want to mentor you, be a good mentee, then that's going to get you really far. But don't feel like you have to go get a mentor just so you can have 10 people give you 10 different advice.
I would say that for me, this advice was given to me, and I really, truly appreciated it. And I am now bequeathing it upon your ears. I was told to take advantage of what my county offers for free. The Small Business Association in our county gave lots and lots of stuff for free. Mentoring being one of them. Coaching. It's certainly not at the level of actually hiring a coach. But if you don't have the capital to hire an actual coach, look and see what kind of resources your county might have, your city might have. They want your business to do well. And so they will provide you with some level of small business advice, coaching, mentoring, workshops, you name it, they'll have it. Take advantage of those things. There's a lot of free stuff. Just go to your county's website, or maybe Google small business in my county, small business association in my county, or SBA tools or whatever. That's kind of what I did. There's a whole program in our county for that. And it was great because I learned a lot of things. I don't know how else I could have learned those things. So in each episode, we like to connect a famous example to our discussion to help you relate our talking points on a more global or well-recognized scale. Sometimes we use exact examples of either famous persons or successful business owners of today or in history, and sometimes we use examples of people who inspire us and have inspired today's discussion. Today, we're going to share a famous inspiration. I can speak for myself here that the list is very long for me, but we're going to do our best to keep it short, and hopefully you'll find inspiration from our own examples as well.
So I think mine is a little bit like half inspiration and half admiration. So certainly an inspiration of mine, which you've probably heard me say this before, is Sara Blakely. She's the founder of Spanx, which I'm sure people have heard that name before. She is amazing in the sense that she started young. She actually went into a business she knew nothing about. So, hands down right there, how she was able to make it all work is amazing. And she actually invented Spanx. Earlier in her like kind of entrepreneur journey, when she was starting Spanx out, she would talk about stories about how she did everything herself. How she actually came up with the idea, how she made the first prototype of the idea, how she had to go figure out the manufacturer, how to figure out how that even worked, how to get a patent. She ended up writing her own patent because she couldn't afford a patent lawyer to do it. Like, she did a lot of things herself, and a lot of things that she tried. And, as far as her journey goes, I mean, how many years has it been since Spanx? It must be at least, 10?
It was in the 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah, 17 years, 18 years. I can't remember how many years the company's been around, but clearly it's still going really, really strong. She's still involved in it. And so as far as just female entrepreneurs to look up to, I think she's amazing.
Oh, yeah. I remember when Spanx became a thing, myself and my friends were like, what? That is the coolest thing ever. Wait, were we doing that? When we were when you would cut, what we did before that is when our hose would run, we would cut the hose part off. My mom did it all the time. Cut the hose part off and keep the top part of it and wear that instead. And Sara Blakely obviously took that idea and ran with it and created an entire industry off of it. And women bought into it. It was truly incredible.
And the thing is, and not to get into the whole gender thing, because certainly I have a lot of inspiration that comes from male entrepreneurs too, but to have somebody who runs a operation that is very feminine, because she is a very feminine energy as well, it's something that you can gravitate to and that you can relate to, because obviously the two of us are a feminine energy too. So she did build a business pretty authentic to herself, and so that's one of the reasons why she's certainly somebody that I look up to. The other three on my list is probably just people who has kept me motivated over the years, especially as building up the business. Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn. So Jim Rohn is the mentor of Tony Robbins. And so you can find, of course, lots of content on Tony Robbins on anything at this point.
Yeah, YouTube, totally.
Podcast, any of it. And certainly Jim Rohn, like his old videos and stuff, is also on YouTube. But, Jim Rohn's kind of no nonsense, gives you direct advice, and it's very logical, so it kind of grounds you. And of course, Tony Robbins being such a big personality, I feel like he works a lot on a psychological aspect of being a business owner, as much as just the practical and practical aspects too, or prescriptive aspects rather. But his free content is mostly psychological. So I feel like, especially when you're going and starting your own business, there are just a lot of ups and downs and a lot of roller coasters of emotions, and having somebody who is motivational to listen to just kind of picks you up. Going. The third one, which I realize is also on your list, is Wayne Dyer.
Great minds think alike.
Oh my gosh. I think I discovered him. I discovered him through Sara Blakely.
Oh, really?
So she mentioned it in one of her interviews that when she was young and she was going through a tough time in her life because her best friend had just died. I think her best friend was hit by a car in front of her. Wow. And so she was in a very deep spot in her life. I think she was 17 or 18. And her father gave her tapes of Wayne Dyer. And I think it's the No Limit Person. And so that's what she listened to. And she's a big fan of Wayne Dyer. So when I heard that, I went up and looked up Wayne Dyer, and that's how I got into him. But his stuff is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And still very practical to this day. So, and a lot of his stuff, all his stuff, I think, is all on YouTube.
Is it? I don't know.
I
I've
think
never
a
looked.
lot of it is they released a lot of information on YouTube. Certainly, he's written a lot of books as
Oh
well.
my gosh, yes.
But
yes,
you can
I've
certainly
read all
find
the books.
of like a lot of his books, audio books on YouTube. And so, how would you describe like what kind of information he provides to his listeners?
So he does talk, he touches upon his own background ever so often. And he had a really rough childhood, like a very sad childhood. And his biggest thing, the core of what he believes or he believed was you are where you are because of yourself. You put yourself there. Now you can take yourself out. The way you think, your mindset creates your reality.
That's a very good way of putting it. I feel like Tony Robbins' message is also similar when I was talking about the psychological aspect. It's really like being accountable, making yourself accountable and realizing that you are in control of being able to change whatever your current situation is. And a lot of it all goes back to mindset.
Yeah. So he had a book called, he touched on the, I'll believe it when I see it. He said, you have to see it to believe it. Believe it. Sorry. You have to believe
it before you see it.
In order to see it.
Yes.
And that was just mind blowing to me because I couldn't imagine a world in which I could manifest. And then I manifested. Oh man, I could. I cried when he died. I mean, I was a massive fan, massive. So growing up, I had a huge affinity for Lucille Ball. So I'm like really steering us to a totally different place here. She and Carol Burnett were the only female comedians I had access to that were both funny, and they truly commanded a stage. Like I was just entranced by them. It wasn't until I became an adult and I learned about how deeply involved Lucille Ball was in trailblazing how we consume media that I really fell in love with her. She is the reason we got Star Trek. Don't believe me? Look it up. I mean, she was amazing. And
I'm in love with her too now. I had no idea.
Yeah, she was amazing. And she was a fantastic model for creating your own success. So Ruth Handler is another one of my idols. There isn't enough space and time to talk about the greatness that is Ruth Handler. I've mentioned her before in a previous podcast, and if you get the chance, look her up on History Chicks. And while you're at it, listen to the Lucille Ball one too. You won't regret it. Not only was she responsible for bringing us Barbie, but her business prowess kept her husband's company from going under, and she innovated toy manufacturing and marketing in a way no one else had or would. I mean, this woman got breast cancer and decided implants, that's what we're going to go into business. We're going to go into business for implants. I mean, who does that? She was never the victim. She was always the opportunity. Lastly, I have to mention my own personal idols. I worked with a woman who truly inspired me at the ripe ages of 11 to the age of 15. Her name was Eileen, and Eileen taught me everything I currently know about business and everything I know about sales. She was savvy, cunning, and an incredible businesswoman. She and her husband were entrepreneurs and very, very wealthy. And she only worked really to kind of keep herself busy. I mention her often, and I hold her memory dear. She didn't know it then, but she made me the businesswoman I am today. Add to that, I learned a lot from my family, of which almost all of them owned a business and I worked for. And I joke every now and then that we could have been our own networking group. I learned from their successes and their failures. I tucked away knowledge year after year, and their voices echo in my memory every time I make a decision, have my own success, and suffer my own failure. I'm truly blessed to have been surrounded by such inspiring people. So, with each episode, we like to share either books, tools, apps, platforms, or anything we think is a great next step and connector to our discussion. So, if you like our subject matter and want to learn more, you'll have a great place to start. In theme with our topic, we're going to share with you what we've read to support us on our journey and the apps we highly recommend that helped us grow.
So I have a few recommendations that fall under podcast and books. Mm-hmm. So these are podcasts that I go to quite often or just repeatedly over the years. There's certainly a huge list of podcasts I listen to, which I know you do too, Sevana.
Yep.
But these few are the ones that I do find myself going back to every once in a while. One of them is Entrepreneur Stories for Inspiration. Mm-hmm. This is definitely one of those podcasts that I always go back to only because he does such the podcast, the interviewer does such a great job of interviewing all these small business owners mm-hmm. and entrepreneurs and really digging into kind of what their day to day is like and what mm-hmm. it was like for them to build the business. And it's certainly if I'm ever looking for inspiration, that's a podcast that I listen to. Mm-hmm. The other one is How I Built This. So the stories on there, right? The stories on there are much bigger, like businesses, brands that we know well of. But of course, it's done in a great way, a great format. The stories are really, really cool. And I highly recommend that podcast. And the other one is 10% Happier by Dan Harris. So Dan Harris also has an amazing story. He wrote a book called 10% Happier, which was a bestseller. And then he followed up that book, I believe, and I could be wrong, might be his third book, called Meditation for the Fidgety Skeptics. And so essentially it's like a practical how to meditate for people who are on the go or has A-type personalities. And it's really for those that, haven't really gone into meditation and maybe don't have the right framework for what meditation is. So the book is also really helpful for just practical tips of how to incorporate meditation into your day to day. But his podcast is always also really neat with all the interviews. Now he works for a news channel. So of course, his interview style and his interview voice is also just really good to listen to.
Yeah.
But like even most recently, like this morning, I was listening to one of his podcast interviews, and it was talking about, how to meditate for people who are of A-type personalities like himself, where most people want to meditate to get something out of it, which is
right.
Kind of not the
it's
point.
It's kind of intuitive.
It is. But, for us who are A-type personalities and go, and people who make things happen, we get into this pattern and cycle of always trying to make things happen, even when we're meditating. All right. So 4 books I would recommend. The first one is The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. It's a classic written a long time ago, but certainly still applicable to today. E-Myth, of course, one of those classics that we have all heard of before. Certainly highly recommended for any new small business owner. The other one is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Again, another classic. That was written years ago as well. He's certainly a controversial figure today, but he's also a millionaire many times over, and a good reason why. And then the last book is Breaking a Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. It's one of those books of you kind of work on your own mindset and whatnot. And it's great for just having a great insight into who you are and how to identify areas of yourself, and also figuring out how to change areas of yourself that you just want to be better at, just to be a better business owner, a better person, or a better entrepreneur, or whatever the case may be. And he also has a lot of great meditation tips and techniques in there on how to do that.
Interesting.
So those are my 4.
All right. So I'm going to go a little cheesy here. I did a lot of self-help books before I started my company. I was feeling a little lost, and I needed to find a compass that felt right to me. And Wayne Dyer, freaking awesome. Loved Wayne Dyer. I consumed every Wayne Dyer book he ever wrote. I was and still am a huge fan of his. And I like I said, I cried when he died. I didn't really read business books, even though I tell people to. Surprise. I listened to my heart, my head, and my gut, and what I needed was guidance, not knowledge. And I feel like a very unique, or I was in a unique position that I like I said, everyone in my family owned a business, and I learned a lot about owning a business from working for different family members. So it wasn't how to run a business that I needed to know, but I did need to know what kind of a business owner did I want to be. And a lot of that had to do with what kind of a human did I want to be. So to podcasts, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and one of my favorites is Business Wars. I love learning about the highs and lows of trailblazers. And of course, there's a bit of a historical edge to it. It's taught me a lot about what I aspire to do and what I should never repeat. History Chicks does this for me too. It's not all business. It's all historical women. And boy, have I learned a lot about my female heroes. It's inspiring without being a tutorial. As to apps, I use, it's a lot. I use TSheets, which is now QB Time. I use Process Street, which I've mentioned ad nauseum. I use EverSign. I use NoteShred. I've just started using Typeform and ActiveCampaign. I use all Google products for virtually everything else. I do my best to try to automate as much as I can. I have no problem giving out work to other people, outsourcing some of my own things. The more free my hands are, the better. And that is probably the greatest advice I can give to any business owner. Do not covet, and do not think that your being exhausted is a badge of honor. It's not. Learn how to give away work and learn to put your mind and your stress level at the forefront of everything that you do. Also, do your own research and see what's best for your company. So much of it is trial and error. If something fails, it's not your fault. It just means something else is going to work the next time you try. I think you heard the both of us discuss quite a bit about how we have both been conscious of our own mental and spiritual health. And not enough business owners put time and effort and focus into that. So I will say it again. Do not use your exhaustion as a badge of honor.
Yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that. It's, if you think about the success you want, and do you see yourself being successful and extremely tired?
Yeah.
Is that how you want to achieve it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or and worn down.
Right. And look at all of your heroes, whoever your hero may be. Were any of your heroes doing it alone? None of them were. Absolutely none of them were successes by themselves. They all had, let's say if it's George Washington, the man had an army of people behind him. If you're looking at, Ruth Handler, she had a whole board of directors behind her. If you're looking at whoever it is, I don't know, I'm just throwing people out there. Whoever it is, they had people behind them. And you should also have people behind you, because in the end, no matter what, no one is coming. Remind yourself that no one is coming. You are in charge, and you are no good to anyone if you're not good for yourself. And in saying that, please join us for our next episode, where we will share another series, and this one is going to be one you cannot miss. We are kicking off our series on the, drum roll please, art of networking. We will be going granular here. Our first episode will be, so what do you do? How to make networking work. From there, may I have your business card, making cards work for you, then mastering the one-to-one. And lastly, it takes a village, converting one-to-ones to lasting partnerships or clients. Want to ask a question? Leave a comment or become a sponsor for a future episode of The Business Behind Small Business? Click on the link in the show notes and fill out the form. Until next time, thanks. Bye.